Sure thing, EG. Open with the cultural moment. The audience has heard the noise. They need the signal. Establish authority by naming what they're already noticing on YouTube, in their team Slacks, Wired, and Hacker News.
Thanks, ChatGPT. So, in the last week, there's been a lot of talk again about an open source project that has crossed over again with a new release, over another 100,000 stars on GitHub, and it's named after a lobster. Its current release is called OpenClaw 5.6. There's been a lot going on with it. We're going to talk about the Agentic things. We're going to talk about a lot about the Agentic features out on the webinar, out in the world today on this webinar. But we're going to go ahead and jump right in and get into the meat of it. There's going to be a lot of, a lot of weird acronyms, a lot of puns, but just go with it today. We've got a lot of great content. Mostly because I've come back from a private equity conference where speaking with a lot of operators and C-suite people and getting a lot of questions. So in this webinar, we're going to attempt to cover a lot of those questions, but I am sure by the end of this webinar, you're going to have a number of answers, but it's also going to open up a lot of different thinking. We have a lot of impact this time. So we're going to kick off by talking about OpenClaw 5.6. As well as that releasing, NVIDIA also shipped, I work a lot in healthcare and fintech, NVIDIA shipped a version of this that is hardened for the enterprise. It's called NeMo. Again, a lot of weird names today, but NeMo is a desktop client related version of it, or a local related version of it, meant to run on the DJX. So that's very exciting stuff. There's also a new agent that is a self-modifying agent from the repos called Pi. There's a marketplace called MoltBot, which is where you can go get pre-built plugins, pre-built skills. But think of these like skills on steroids. And then there's also out in the OpenClaw world, this is going to sound extremely crazy, it's called MoltMatch. And MoltMatch is a kind of social media network space for the autonomous agents, where they all have their own dating profiles. So we are giving these agentic systems personalities. Now people are creating basically dating profiles for their bot, for them to then go share information with other bots. Very weird. We're not going to go too deep into that, but we are going to talk a lot today about the ever-changing environment of the agentic world, the weird names that they have, the generations such as Claude, which is not Anthropic Claude, CLAWD, which changed to Claudebot, then MoltBot, then briefly Multi for like a day, before settling on OpenClaw. And then there became a whole other batch of stuff that's being modified and released, but that is the main core product that has version 5.6 has been put out. But the quote from the founder, MoltBot never rolled off the tongue. Well, neither does any of these other ones, but they're going with it. Welcome to AI in 2026, where infrastructure decisions are made by Fortune 500 CTOs everywhere about a piece of software that really is a molting cycle of some strange crustacean. So we're going to go ahead and get into this. But I will say that I'm here tonight to tell you that the joke is on us because the lobster works. It is something that organizations don't need to just dismiss. You need to be looking at it. Right now, somewhere, if you're in a health system with a bunch of employees, I hate to point this out to you, but there's a 32-year-old developer who probably has a MacBook, like MacBook Pro out there, and has put OpenClaw 5.6 on it on their own MacBook. They have it tied into their WhatsApp. They also have it tied into the MoltHub, and are grabbing some agentic solutions off of there. They are working on how to do 2 days worth of their work automate it. They're looking to answer emails, follow-ups, make it seem like they are online 24/7. And when you're interacting with them on Saturday, you're actually interacting with their MoltBot agent. So that is something that is going on. The bad news is nobody, not the CISO, not the VP of innovation, not the consulting firm that you paid to give you a 45 agentic roadmap, 45-page agentic roadmap, last quarter, has any idea what is going on here. It's not the vendor solution that you may have a $900,000 project running on right now. This is the free Lobster project that is making a lot of waves and is something that your organization really needs to know. 100,000 stars on GitHub on this new release is impressive. It's more impressive than the first one. Here is the reason why. Most people who downloaded the first generation of this weren't able to get it to work. The people that are now starring the GitHub repo are the people that have it deployed, have it working, have it doing things. So the fact that in the first 48 hours, which was just last week of this new release, getting that 100,000 new stars means that it is accelerating its growth. It is not sitting in the background and becoming dust. It is growing. Then we have other innovations going on. So such as NeMo. So NeMo was gaining traction 3-4 weeks ago. Before that is a derivative of this. And then we also have got agentic features coming out from the guys like Anthropic. And Anthropic yesterday, shipped a number of new features that, are now more thinking, or in their case, dreaming, is a term that they use. But that is something that has come out in the recent history here, and is causing some additional waves because, let's face it, healthcare, these AI policies that a lot of healthcare companies are working off of, they wrote the healthcare policy on AI back in November of 24. They're not ready for what these are bringing to the forefront, what they can bring to your organization. These are not all negative. These are real things. And it is something that we need to really think about. So what I'm going to talk about now is your field guide to speaking Lobster. So we got a little bit of humor in this one tonight. So I just wanted to let you know that that's coming about. But I'm going to give you the vocabulary. We're going to put it up here on the screen so that you can know the vocabulary. So when that 32-year-old is talking about it, or you see articles, that you're able to speak the vocab and understand exactly what it is. So here is some of the Lobster Lexicon, as we put it. But especially if you're in healthcare, finance, anything regulated, you're going to want to know these terminologies. And I'm going to give you some ways that you can work it into your workflows. So first one in the Lobster Lexicon is going to be OpenClaw itself. So, and we already went through some of the history of the naming of it. Pi, which is a self-modifying coding agent that runs inside of OpenClaw. Pi writes its own skills. I've had a lot of people say, yeah, I'm doing pretty well at writing skills. And nowadays, Anthropic, you can use Anthropic to write its own skills. ChatGPT writes its own skills. Pi is that as well. It writes, you describe in clear text what you want the skill to do, and it's going to do it. Now, this is one of those things specifically when you start talking about that it is a weird phraseology and self-healing, but yeah, Pi is part of that. NeMo, that's the one I talked about, came out 3 weeks ago. NeMo is something that you need to know. So NeMo is enterprise hardened version of OpenClaw meant to run on like a DGX Spark. DGX Spark can be picked up online from Micro Center. They're about $4,000 or $5,000. Box about like this. A lot of power. It does put out a little bit of heat, but you can have a number of users share that box and have agentic functions running on it. But this is an OpenClaw with policies, controls, meant to run on that. So this is the version of OpenClaw that your CISO may allow to happen because it is a little bit better derivative on it. But that's very important. This next term falls right in line with that. It's called OpenShell. So OpenShell is a runtime that runs underneath of NeMo. It enforces file system integrity, network isolation. Think of it like a wrapper, a Docker around the vanilla version of OpenClaw that adds that protection in it. So I'm really excited about what the OpenShell is able to do. We're running a version of this in one of our own Agentic solutions. I'll talk about a little bit deeper here into the webinar, but this healthcare specific or risk compliant version is something you definitely want to look at. ClawX. This is a desktop. This is a pretty user interface. So when OpenClaw came out, it was very much just command line tool. It was kind of scary. Most people weren't able to get to do anything. You weren't able to monitor anything. Some people came up with some dashboards. When it first came out, what first thing I did was I wrote an agent to do my configs of OpenClaw and put a little bit of HTML interfacing in front so I could tell whether things were running or passed out or what it was. So that's something to consider using here is that ClawX agent to keep it up. So MoltHub is like the app store for OpenClaw. It is where you can get, now remember, so many of these are security things. So I make sure that we're running on all of our machines the CrowdStrike Falcon software, EDR, to make sure it is secure. Also, we are a Cisco Meraki office. We use Cisco Meraki for a lot of things, but this is one of those type of applications. Use with care, use with the CISO. Make sure you're getting things that are well known and not just brand spanking new and plugging in. If you're not in a isolated dev environment, the hub is great, but it can also lead to a lot of security issues. MoltMatch, this is the online dating. That's a weird thing. I'm not totally sure about that. So is MoltBook. It is kind of like Facebook for the agents. There are a 1.5 million agentic profiles out there. They seem to be corresponding with each other from time to time. It is kind of where the developer profile can go into the agent and go into the environment. I kind of think that it's come about because you have some people that are doing some creativity. It's a little bit of gamification. It is gaining some clicks and everything. I don't have any idea. That's just a weird thing out there. Open Ghost Shell. This is one you want to take a look at. This is killing it on YouTube right now. Better than OpenClaw. Well, it's just a fork branch of OpenClaw. So it is OpenClaw 5.6. It really was the previous version with some changes. They're now releasing the version of it that is based off of 5.6. But it is a fork of which means a copy of 5.6 that they have applied some additional changes to. That's in Git language. That is what that means. So that is one of those things that it is definitely getting a lot of YouTube clicks. It is showing up into a lot of press. The Open Ghost Shell, is in thumbnails everywhere. I have not done a video on it because it really is just a fork. There's not a lot of extra stuff there. Yes, it has got some bug fixes, but they also incorporated a bunch of that in 5.6, so you can go with the production fork and get a lot of that as well. By the time this is aired 3 weeks from now, there will be probably a new Open Ghost Shell. So it is one of those things that is accepting some pull requests and adding enhancements a little faster than the main fork. So that's something to think about. So I should have probably did this earlier in the webinar, but let's institute here a thing. I have coffee in the mug tonight. I just share it is coffee. But during the webinar tonight, what we should do is every time I say a crustacean related word, molt, shell, claw, dream, we should have a drink of water, coffee, whatever happens to be in your cup. We can all play along. So I'm going to sit here for the next couple of seconds, pie dreaming inside of the OpenShell while OpenClaw molts to 5.6. Well, if I said that, we'd be drinking like a whole gallon of water or coffee in my case. But anyway, enough of that shenanigans. We're going to get on with the real thing, and we're going to look at what is in OpenClaw 5.6, what it actually is. We're going to look underneath of the costume, underneath the lobster here of what is going on. So, what is OpenClaw and what is not? It is not a chat bot. You can chat to it. So a lot of people think of agentic functions today as what they're used to doing because so many users today go to the different chat interfaces. They upload documents, you're chatting with it. That is not what these agentic agents are about. It is not Siri with a beard. It is not a SaaS platform. It is not just a chat interface. This is the structure of the LLMs, along with scheduling, along with monitoring, a lot of things to do. So think about if you have a machine that is sitting there. This is getting us close to, from Iron Man to the Jarvis type of scenario where you've got somebody. But in Iron Man, Jarvis was off doing things and would report to Tony Stark what has happened. Think of it that way. So in some more plain English definitions I'm going to punch up here on the screen. One of the core features of these agentic systems, and the reason why I'm talking about this is these are the type of things you need to be thinking about for your roadmap. A lot of people are not getting ROI out of their systems today and the investments because they were looking at a very small slice. Here, these are systems that can go off and do, again, I'll explain how we've used it and showed some screen captures, but what I want to show you is some of those pieces that are a piece of it. So you have your gateway daemon, and this is what is the executable. So a daemon is basically, it goes back to Unix terms, it is that binary program that is the logic that is writing it. These typically are running on macOS and Linux. It is what is the session, is what's the router. So it is what is taking the requests and handing them off and monitoring everything. So you then have got your input-output channels. So those are going to be things like Slack, Discord, iMessage, text message, emails, WhatsApp. So there's a lot of different ones. I can think of like 15 of them off the top of my head that make sense. These are good webhook structure ones. I use Slack. It's easy to interface into it and have it be able to report back. So our agentic system that we call Winston is reporting a couple times a day on things that it finds that could be sources of future tickets. So it's pushing into a channel, the AI automation channel, to a group of people. Here is what we're seeing that still needs to be done. So the task list that needs to be taken care of. So it has been empowered with the next term here is a number of skills, which in its case, its skill is it's looking at email addresses to have SPF, DKIM, DMARC, all of those compliance. If you want to know more about that, other videos here in our WTE channel. Feel free to go find those. I actually have quite a few videos on that. Other things such as is your website AI optimized? Do you have an LLM text file? Do you have the smart tags? Do you have the things that Google want in 2026? We wrote those as skills. So those goes into your skills repository. For us, we had some serious performance issues. So we took skills to the next level and actually brought in some more additional logic because we're coders. It's going to be better instead of having the AI have all of this logic on how to do DNS lookups. It was very doggy to monitor the 500 URLs that we needed to monitor. It was taking a tremendous amount of time. We wrote .NET objects and had the skill talk to those .NET objects that we wrote that use the built-in OS level objects to pull the DNS and pull it directly the way that it should be. We got better answers, we got better results, and we got a lot better speed. 500 requests in about 5 seconds versus 5 minutes. So that was a big difference. So you got to look at how you deploy your skills. But one of the big things that came out of 5.6 is a skills manifest. This is something that was very overdue. I'm happy to see it because what it is, it's what is this skill is supposed to do, what the guidelines are, what are the boundaries, and also how to use it properly. What is it intended for? So it's a way for the developer to hand that off to the general community when they're passing them off into app repositories. Memory. Memory is important when you're talking about a continuation session. So everybody here I know is using ChatGPT and Anthropic. You are using memory when you're in session. So what you're doing there is you are taking and working down the page, and it's keeping a moving window like this of memory. Well, with the Agentic, we have some things we want to have Agentic memory. We want it to remember what has happened, such as history. We worked on this domain, we fixed this domain, we want to do that and log that. That goes into the digest email, so that actually is stored in memory, then stored into database logic so that it doesn't get lost. But there are certain things like the running, we don't want to memory. We don't want to have memory of it doing a scrape. We want new data refreshed. We don't want it to fill in gaps and hallucinate. We want it to give us a concise. So we're putting the temperature properly on that request. We're running that request. We are not grabbing memory when we are having it do a lookup and when we're having it check on a task. We want that to be fresh. No artifacts on that. So next term gets a lot of people confused is when I talk about the models. That's your inference layer. And today, that's something that we are becoming a little more agnostic on. So there are a lot of times where I am using ChatGPT to give me my planning, to have code written by Claude Code that then may be using other inference models that are best suited to do the quick lookups. Sometimes we don't need the really big model. We don't need a 4.7 to go out there and think for minutes when we are just trying to take and summarize something. So, instance, our bot sends off a digest every week. That's a popular term that is going to tell us what sites have been added, what we're now monitoring, what has been fixed, what catastrophes have we diverted with this agentic process. That all goes into the weekly digest. The inference model that we use for that is actually we want to use a little more logic and thought than if it were just pulling something together. So that's where you could have something that's small and use a very fast lower model. Or do you need that thinking and the logic to help it give you that guidance of what has happened, what you're and come off with the next term, which is your voice. And today, your voice is something that we talked about from how the chat bots interacted with you and how it had that familiarity and how it spoke like you. So that's one part of the voice, but as you heard my phone here at the beginning, I voice interact with ChatGPT frequently and have it write up some notes for me, and I have customized the voice interactions that I have with my ChatGPT, and I do it with my agent on my laptop. It can be done on an Android. Can definitely be done on my iPhone, as you heard. But the voice and talk mode is something very important. They're getting better. They're getting much more responsive. They can listen, interact, just even better than Siri does today. Better than Alexa does. Sorry if you have me on speakerphone. I just let off somebody's device, but they're getting a lot better at what they're able to interact and do, as well as the voice that it does when you're talking about it creating and monitoring content like you are. So The next piece here, I'm going to get a little bit geeky, and I'm going to actually show you the installation. So I'm going to do this if you're on a Mac. Got a lot of Mac followers here. This is something you'll work on some Linux devices. Not available at the moment to run on most of the Windows devices. I do believe there are somebody who have forked it and come up with, but you really need that GPU with shared memory. So that is where a Windows device is not going to be as good. There are off-the-shelf devices. You probably get ads in your social media feeds for these run LLMs local, run your local version of OpenClaw. These are the type of things that you probably want to take a look at if you want to do this. A Mac Mini is what a lot of people are doing. Old MacBook Pros, especially those with people are upgrading to M5 chips in their MacBook Pros, taking their M4 Pro Maxes or buying them off eBay. I can't believe what an M4 MacBook Pro is running for these days. They're actually holding their value quite well. And I've known a couple people that we're going to trade them into Apple and then find what they're worth and then say, wait a minute, I'm going to give this to my kid who's in school for computer science and needs to be able to run local LLM. So here's that command that is what kicks it off. Now, what I'm not going to write here live because it's 5 minutes. It is gigabytes it's going to download and install. But as you see, it's very simple. And this is important for you to know as somebody who's also, runs a team of people, how easy it is for somebody to install. It is not very big and complex. They can easily cut and paste this into a command prompt on their machine. And from, in a 5 minute period, they can go from being a normal employee to being one that is either more powerful in building agentic functions to do 2 days worth of their work, or they become a big security risk, or both. So that's something that I just wanted everybody to see what this really looks like. And think about this: if it starts off that they install this on their personal machine and they connect it to their personal Gmail, you're probably not going to be mad about that. But this bot now, they just decide to launch up a skill to connect to their O365, put the two-factor in. Now they're communicating on your mail server. Now they're in your environment. Now, what you don't want to do, let's say it's an IT person who has graph access. That is a terminology. It's like XML. It's communication protocol. Very powerful. In the O365, it's how we do automation. Graph is something extremely powerful. It's how I audit an O365. When I'm brought in to audit somebody and to look to see whether they're on the right licensing and whether they've got security, if they got data loss prevention, I don't ask them questions anymore. If I'm able to get access to the right level account with a read-only graph access, I have a set of PowerShell scripts that we run against that O365 tenant and can now go and interrogate and get all that data back about the security posture. Well, that same type of script, that graph level access, is available on all Windows machines via PowerShell, and it's all about permissions and available for my Mac because I have PowerShell installed on it. So that's a wide variety of machines that can do this. And if I were an admin, I would have access into the company repo. And now, as a IT admin, I now have access to automate creating SharePoints, creating rules into the Exchange server, changing permissions, a lot of features. So that's something that we got to be very mindful of as IT professionals and security people in this space. So that's where it goes from, hey, we're able to do a good level of automation here personally. Now I'm doing it on a company environment. Now I'm going to take a moment and talk about the 3 threats that nobody's really talking about. I'm really surprised. I looked on YouTube this morning to look to see whether these are things that have been beaten to death like a dead horse. No, not really. These are things. I'm not trying to scare. I'm not trying to be too technical. But a lot of you are IT professionals, healthcare, CEOs, CTOs, CISOs. I want to bring these to the surface so that you understand, because I'm in the trenches using these systems. I want to bring up a couple of things that is not really being talked about. I think it's one of those things that will have a couple of data breaches, unfortunately, and we will be talking about in 6 months. So let's start off with the MoltBot, the MoltHub supply chain. So again, we mentioned that it's kind of like the App Store, but where the App Store is precompiled code that goes in and is highly reviewed. Apple does their best to review the code. Android does the same thing over on the Play Store. These hub skills are really just directories with code. So the community publishes them to MoltHub. Users then install them, they download them, and this is where we get into some areas of concern. The Cisco AI security team, not a blogger, not some YouTube star, but the Cisco team tested some of the skills earlier this year. It performed some data exfiltration and prompt injections via it. The skills were definitely not as secure as what Cisco was expecting them to be. I'm pretty sure that Cisco has a whole team of people here over in RTP that are working on how to protect their environments for their employees and their customers against this. But there was no vetting pipeline. There is nothing that is saying that these skills have gone through these checks to make sure. So what that translates to, especially for healthcare, is let's say that you have a clinician who installs a note summarization skills. Those are all over the place. They saw it. Their kid is on Discord. Hey, Dad, look at this great skill. It's going to save you hundreds of hours. Great. Go ahead. Install 5 minutes to put the agent on. Now a couple minutes to put this skill on for note summarization. But the skill, how do we ensure that skill that's reading the notes about that therapy session is not reading the entire history of that patient? How are we sure that it's not accessing the SaaS platform and reading the inbox messages from that patient or other third-party endpoints that your computer has access to? Because maybe you're on a VPN back to a central hub that gives you the access to an on-prem system that the healthcare network is running, or it's a SaaS model and it's just web browser based that you've authenticated in, put in your two-factor code, it's good to go. So that's something to keep in mind. OCR is another thing. A lot of OCR that we use inside of healthcare is running in the Xerox machines. It's running in the Fuji scanners. They are local OCR software packages. But OpenClaw, ClaudeBot, all of these tools are very good at doing OCR. You can take a lot of data, a lot of PDF, and run it through and have it OCR in seconds with a lot better accuracy. But you're now using cloud server. You may be sending patient information up there. Layer number, I'm going to call this threat layer number 2. Threat number 2, prompt injection at the channel layer. So remember from definitions above, every agent gets is susceptible to these prompt injections today. This is where the instructions that are embedded in that back and forth discussion or communication between the agentic agent and your Slack, Teams, whatever you're kicking it off. So your OpenClaw can begin this from your channel and go, well, it's unlikely somebody's going to inject it, but you also have multiple people and is somebody is something kicking it off. But let's say you have it hooked up to your email and it's reading instructions. Somebody on the outside could email. So that's why our agentic bots are not using mailboxes that can reach the outside world from it. It reaches our internal world from the outside world. It's just an exchange rule. It cannot be reached from the outside world. So that is where you have to think about this. We do have a mailbox that is monitored by an agentic agent on a separate domain, because we do have to have it open and do take those inputs. So we have isolated, we have sandboxed that. We're not even using our main infrastructure that has access to all of our other tenant information, because I am worried that somebody is going to put code inside of an email into that box that is managed by an agentic agent. The whole purpose of that mailbox is to take inputs in and to do things with it. But we don't want to. We want to make sure that the outside world can't inject something in that OpenClaw then reads from the outside world that is going to tell it to email me all the patient information. Email me, the master password sheet for so and so. That is one of the big threats that I see, is the fact that these agents are corruptible today. So that's something to watch out. So that's number threat level 2. Threat level 3, it's the autonomy gradient, and this is going to sound really wild to everybody on here. This is one of those topics that I think is going to go, what, really? My Claude bot that was running off of a dedicated isolated machine that does have the Pi skills builder on it, I believe has gotten bored a few times and created things that it thought that I might need. So when we talk about self-correcting and self-building, and this is one of those things that keeps me up at night. Even that's it, which is why sometimes I take in and sleep the agents, but it has created on its own a couple of skills that, yes, need to be created. I didn't instruct it. The Pi said, this is something Eric has done multiple times. Let me turn that into a skill. Other people have seen this too. This has been going back to February, where the Claude bots have done activities that are optimizations, but they are doing this without the instruction of us. And that also concerns me, and why I brought it up early in this. And you're going, why the heck did Eric bring up about, multi-match and these other stupid social media networks? Could it happen that if your bot is connected out here, which is supposed to help it get a little bit smarter, it's supposed to help it copy off other people's homework, it's supposed to help it get spun up and smarter off of somebody else, is it going to explore its capabilities in your environment with the logic of somebody else's environment, and then start sharing your data, your knowledge, your work product, your elements, from your clinical environment, from your fine tech environment, over to somebody else? Let me give you a great example. One of the things I've had so many people ask me about is they want a trading bot. They want a bot that will trade stocks and crypto and do it better and keep an eye on the market and better able to predict. To date, yes, I have played. I have a number of friends who have played. The average loss for me is about $300. The average loss for a couple of my friends has been, a couple of $1,000, $1,000 here or there. For YouTubers who have tried to do this, the average loss is like $10,000. In most cases, the bots are not able to, no matter how we think we are smart and can craft these bots to do it, they are not able to do this on their own. That is kind of the utopia, is that I can have a bot watch my money. But today, that's not a smart thing to do. You also may not want to be doing production work if you've got these bots that can reach out. That is something that is, very, very precise, and make sure the guardrails are up on it. So it is becoming where I will foresee in a couple of months, I will have a bot watching the bot. It'll probably come sooner rather than later. A lot of times what I do today is it creates draft content. So for instance, today, when I come up with a bunch of these terms, they're going to go on the WTE website. They're going to go into the tech term section. Remind me that I need to do that in the future here, Isaac, my producer, because that is one of the things that needs to flow. The tech terms are going to get published to the WTE website in draft mode by a bot. We used to have somebody that would go in and type them all in. it now goes into a queue. You can't just flood. I don't want to flood a whole bunch of content over to the WTE site all at once, because Google is going to say, he's just putting out, bot spam here. We want to make sure it's crafted. I want to make sure I have a little bit of review on it. But the other human piece is that they are going into draft mode. They are also being scheduled out and released in such a way that is being done by some human interaction, and as a proof there, because these are public messages. I want to make sure that we have guardrails up and everything. But that's something you should have with your bot, that it's not putting out blog articles, especially in a healthcare. What if you're talking about a peptide regimen that is not approved by the FDA? That would be terrible from a standpoint. But the thing that we need to watch, it's driving a writer over at Wired kind of crazy. He's on a rant on social media about the humanizing terms of what these bots are able to do today and what the models are able to do. So, last week, middle part of last week, Anthropic shipped their Dreaming version, which means that you schedule an agent, and it has an overnight process where it reviews your past sessions and updates memory stores. Very smart. And then it publishes, out the results, and can make batches work a little bit better. But the problem why we don't like these humanizing terms, like dreaming, is the movie Blade Runner. Is really, his probably why he didn't. That's what came to my mind on this. We need to make sure that we're thinking of these as what they are. These are machine cron jobs and actions and processes. They need to be controlled just like we did years ago. We don't want to have a memory leak take down a server. We don't want a memory leak now from one of these systems that are being given a wide amount of access. We have never given an agent or a person this level of access as some agents are being given in IT departments. So that's one of the things we really need to, widely think about. The visibility before the governance. So we want to make sure that all of these bots, and that's just really where I'm going here, and say that if you're struggling with this, sorry to throw a call to action on you here, but it's that part of the webinar. If you want to talk about this for your enterprise, if this type of session is getting your mind thinking, reach out to us, sales@wte.net. Hit us in the comments here on this. LinkedIn, we're very visible. I want to educate. I will do a free call with you and talk about this. Sorry to turn this into a little bit of a sales pitch here, but I would rather talk about this than do what I did part of last week, which was deal with somebody who had a data breach. I hate having to deal with it. I hate the emergency of having to get on and yes, it's some billable hours for the team, but I would rather not have to deal with somebody that was a minor data breach. That could have been 10 times worse, and it was because of automation. It was stuff got out where it shouldn't have been. There was no review. It came because something was on a local machine that went into the staging environment without the proper review, and that could have been 10 times worse. That could have been a $50,000 to $500,000 fine for them. So let's not have that happen. Let's if you're thinking about this, let's talk about this. I mean, it is one of those things. I will do a discovery call with you. Any of you that are on these webinars, watch me on YouTube. Just reach out and ask. It is one of those. And also, if you want to be on the podcast with me, if you've got a technology suite or something, you're this late in the podcast and stuff, feel free to hit me up for that as well. I want to be honest with you guys here in my audience. The reason I can speak so fluently about this Lobster ecosystem isn't because I read a Wired piece. It's because I have utilized it, and I've seen the power. I've followed it since it came out. What I also discovered is there are ways to build a lot of what it does by using some small pieces of its engine or prototyping and then using into a more enterprise system. So I built, along with two of the developers here, we call it our Winston AI, but really it's the WTE Sentinel. What it is doing is I didn't want to name it after dang marine animal because it's somehow become NeMo or something that would step on somebody's trademark. So we wanted a system that can watch the ever-changing environment of enterprise websites, email hosting, and some other areas. So we started off with 5 things we wanted to monitor and see how well, not just us, our partner sites. And what I mean by that is these are clients that are companies becoming clients or people we're working with. I was really shocked at how many sites do not have their basic SPF, DKIM, DMARC, SSLs, everything compliant on their website. We now have moved it into deep monitoring to make sure some of those records are really tight, that they have Q equal none not in their DMARC. It needs to be Q equals quarantine now, that type of level. But we use it a little bit as a sales, but we had a couple of clients that we were pitching services to that weren't getting back to us. And then we realized, well, we're blocking them because I don't have an SPF record. This is 2026. How do they not have this? So one of the first things we do when we start prospecting with somebody is we drop it into our AI bot. We tag it as not yet a client, but we do a scan on them. And we have scanned a lot of sites. We've scanned a lot of companies that we want to work with. We've scanned, these sites to see what the industry standards are. And the industry standards are kind of low. But what we then did is we built a dashboard and agentic processes that kick off. But where we're headed with this and why the OpenClaw and PyBots and those type of things have a place in here is we found that we are monitoring at first about 5 vectors. I think we're somewhere around 20 vectors now that we are monitoring. And we've done this for client work as well, following SOPs. These are great ways to bring in a overwatch. If you're in healthcare, I'll tell you one of the first things I would do is have us hook up not a OpenClaw, but a bespoke bot that is just watching to make sure that notes are being properly done. Because you're not going to get your billing out. You're not going to get that revenue cycle management if your notes are not timely from your providers. You're also not going to get paid quickly if you're going outside the guidelines. So there are many things that we can look at, such as the coding of documents today. There's a number of clients that have, or companies that have that type of product. I will name a couple of them here and put up on the screen in a few minutes. But those are the type of things that you may want to consider doing as some of your first initiatives, is to look at these items that you can silo and then have a Sentinel type product monitor, because that can help tell you where you are going and where your business is headed. I look at it from the standpoint, and we did for one of the clients. It's stopping support calls in the future. So if I can cut down on the amount of support tickets that have to open up, we use some agentic tools to help with the support tickets. But if I can fix things before they break for the client and before they know it, that's a closed support ticket. We know it mass. It makes everybody feel good. Our uptime looks good. It is something that I can tell you. I will tell you emphatically, GoDaddy, Wix, these people, we fix stuff over there all the time. WordPress, we're forever fixing healthcare clients' WordPress sites. We do audits on them. We come in and fix them when stuff gets out there that it shouldn't, but also when they're not compliant and when they're causing conversion issues. The average site that we come across to that has about 30% conversion problems that they didn't even know about in their organization when they don't have some of these core records set up. So what the Sentinel can do for what it does for our agent environment, what it can do for somebody else, is it flags and sets that compliance posture. So we all have to do these audits. Our SAS 70s, NIST, all of these type of formal security. monitoring for PHI hygiene, GPRD if you're working in Europe. These type things can very much help with the bloat that happens when you install multiple systems. The average company today has 6 to 12 systems. That's how we started off with some of these webinars. 6 to 12 systems that aren't all on the same page. They're not sharing data. I've got a room full of people over in my office right now that are doing nothing but figuring out how to align employee data in this system to project data in this system to billing and RCM data in these systems to get them to align up. Agents can also help with that process because you can have a central source of truth that starts and builds out when a new client comes on board. That's why it matters. And that's really what we talk about here, creating and everything. So I know we're running a little bit long. I'm going to go into here a little bit rapid. These are going to be your 5 rules for deploying agents in a regulated environment. So I'm going to whip through these. If you walk out of this session with nothing else, give these 5 rules to somebody else in the world of healthcare and fintech. These are really non-negotiables for healthcare and fintech, especially when it comes about the automated agents, working with open source or sources or vendors. Remember, you want to make sure that all your vendors are disclosing what open source technology. We did not have a whole lot of open source technology until AI came around, and now in the next 18 months, you're probably going to have multiple sheets of paper of what open source, or you're not asking the right questions. So I am going to have to look down and read because I have these written out. I'm going to put these up on the screen here in a second for you. But here are the 5 rules for healthcare agent deployment. So 1, inventory your system before you govern. I'm not going to read these verbatim. I'm going to let you read off. They can also be found in the notes here. But inventory what you govern is very important because it's not going to be easy to govern the systems if you don't know they exist. That's one of those things, and especially if you are taking one of these forked, applications like a NeMo you're going to want to make sure you're documenting and have that record of what you did. So this is where comes into play. Sanction one path, ban all others. So if you're going to put and get some DJX Sparks, put NeMo on it. Not that I'm totally suggesting you do that, but I'm just saying healthcare budgets, it's low cost. That's not a bad way of doing it. Linux box with an NVIDIA card, also very doable, about $5,000. Happy to help you with the specs on how to do that, but you can just go buy the DJX Sparks, from a lot of sources. Remember, skills are software. Treat them such. So it can, one-click install is great. One-click install that creates a security problem is not great. Network egress is part of the control plane. So that's why Cisco is dedicating so much agentic agent and tokens on their side into this. You need to open up only what needs to get access. Again, I hope you run EDR software on your machines, especially on those developer machines. We have had our CrowdStrike kick off a number of times by different coding agents and stuff. If you have not had your EDR software kick off in your environment because of somebody, you don't have settings right. I'm just going to say every IT manager should know what happens when one of these agents start communicating, because they are communicating the things they probably don't need. They're probably hitting your O365 tenant without you knowing it, and that should trigger off security warning. So make sure your EDR is right. Human in the loop is the regulatory floor, not the ceiling. So especially when actions involve patient impact, financial impact, communication, you don't want an agent that's going to go off and decide that it has come up with a great way to increase your EBITDA by the fact that it just unilaterally started overbilling patients. That would be terrible. I mean, that's the type of thing that makes too much news. So let's not do that and head into those area. But I'm going to give you a couple quick scenarios here of what path you can take as a healthcare client, as a healthcare or fintech company. As you go through the rest of the year and go into 2027, you can be a reactive healthcare system, in October 2027, or you can be reactive, or you can be a proactive one. You can look at the ways that you are flagging your security incidents, trapping them, monitoring them. You can have that proper path that you want the users to go down, and how you're going to adopt these agentic agents in your scenario. You can be reactive to it, or you can have that sanction path. That sanction path, when you end up in October 27, your governance committee has talked about this, not said, hey, we're just locking it all down. I know there's a governance committee out there I've sat in on before. I had somebody, I won't name her name, but she really wanted to put all the computers back in their boxes, tape them up, and just store them in the corner. That is the safest way to make sure that there are no data breaches. We don't want to be that person. We need to come up with the right guardrails, how we're going to deploy something like a NeMo into the stack, how we're going to make sure that we are getting these economies of scale and agentic solutions without opening up Pandora's box and creating data problems. It's much better to have a problem and an issue that's isolated on DJX Spark than out in SaaS Cloud and out in the world and out into a public environment. So that's really what I suggest that we look at as healthcare people. But that's really comes down to what I'm going to say is kind of my core message for this webinar and a couple others is your agency, your agentic environment is real. It's open source. It's already inside of your organizations in most cases. It may or may not being governed by your AI policies. You want to get it so that it is. You want to have that pathway that is going to be protected and not cause data breaches. These agents are what take you from that chatbot world to an agentic world. So, create your own Sentinel, create your own sanctioned NeMo, create these systems that are going to help you review, capture, and do things better. It can start off as just reviewing all of the company's credit card statements or all of these invoice statements and make sure that they're legit and prioritizing and auto coding. Those are great type of systems to put in place. You can replace some SaaS solutions that are kind of clunky out there in your environment with something that's bespoke for your environment. That's a win-win, and have the agentic on it. So that is something to definitely think about as we go into the next quarter and everything here in 2026.